There we go. Getting the hang of this new software. Welcome. This is Real Guitar Live. I'm Thomas Michaud, and I'm looking forward to answering your guitar questions. I'm going to jump right in and get started with the first question. And by the way, feel free to add a question anytime in the chat. If you could start with the word question, it'll help me to see it more quickly and easily. And if I miss your question, I apologize in advance. Just add it again. I really do want to answer all your questions. Let me start with the first one. I learned both the House of the Rising Sun arrangements in E minor and in A minor. I like starting in E minor. It's easier for my voice, but then I go into an instrumental version of A minor. How can I transition from one to the other smoothly? Is there a chord or a lick that can make it sound good? Great question. And it's a lot of fun to kind of transition from one key to another in a song in general. It doesn't have to be the whole song changing keys, but sometimes there's a part of a song that changes keys. This is from Sandra, by the way. You know, the first thing to keep in mind is the easiest way to switch keys is to think, what's the 5 chord in the key I want to go to? And if you can get that 5 chord in, it sort of sets it up to sound like you're going to another key. Particularly if you make that 5 chord a 7th. In other words, in the key of E minor, the 5 chord would be B, E, F, G, A, B. Make that a B7. The B7 has a strong pull to go back to E minor. Now you want to go to the key of A minor, put in the 5 chord of the A minor right at the end. So we're going to A minor. What's the 5 chord of A minor? E7. 1, A, B, C, D, E, E7. We're going to throw in the E7. That's going to say we're going to the key of A minor. So let me show you. This is the end of House of the Rising Sun. In E minor, right? The B7 back to E minor. Now I'm going to go to the A minor. Now it's pretty smooth, very simple. Just change that E minor to an E7. That kind of signals in your ear. It's a 5 chord, it has this pull, it wants to go somewhere. That's the simplest, and often the simplest is the best. I'll show you another idea. Let me think. I like to use bass line sometimes to change from one key to another. So here's a possibility. I'm in the key of E minor. Just establishing that key. And the bass line kind of gives you an extra, the movement gives you a sense of we're going somewhere else. So I just did a bass line going now from G, F sharp to the E, and then I went to the E7. And it kind of sets that up a little bit. I think it's a little stronger, and it depends on what you want to hear, basically. You know, sometimes more something more complicated like that is just the right thing. And sometimes it's too much. Another possibility is to, instead of doing the E7, do a bass line going to the A minor. So something like this. Again, I'm on the end of House of the Rising Sun, E minor. So let me establish the key. The B7. See, now you can hear the song. Bass line, A. That was a little more abrupt, wasn't it? Right to the A minor. It works. That's by far the most useful. That would cover probably 80-90% of what I would do. And then there's another 10% of, you know, something a little different or interesting because I really want to change things up. Most important thing, think about the 5 chord of the key that you want to get to. And how can I use that 5 chord key to signal I'm going to another key? And then you go to the other key. Next question. Feel free, if you think of a question related to, throw that in the chat. I'll see if I can catch it. Every now and then I'll look over and see. Okay, nothing related yet. Next question. It says I have a Cordoba ep107 guitar, and I came across some string cleaners. Do you use one of on your flamenco guitar? This is a flamenco guitar, by the way. And which strings actually need it? I'm thinking just the 3 wound strings. So ideally, you should always wipe your strings off after you play guitar, because you have oil on your fingers, and the oil gets on the strings, and it'll corrode the strings. It's most obvious on the wound strings, but it also accumulates on the unwound strings. And the Kotroba is a nylon string guitar, so he's playing a nylon string. The nylon strings still, they lose their tone even though they don't visibly corrode. And you want to wipe the strings off to get that oil off. You can use a string cleaner as well. Maybe it'll facilitate a little bit. I honestly don't do that. And I know more electric guitar players that do that than nylon string players. I don't know anybody playing nylon string that actually uses the string cleaners. Also, I would wipe all the strings, not just the wound strings. And again, because even though you don't see it, the unwound strings, the nylon strings, are accumulating oils. That said, I'll have to admit, I almost never wipe down my strings. I probably change my strings a little more often than most students do, but I'm really, I'm not up for the extra work of wiping down each time. I might change my mind someday, but I've got plenty of other things to work on. Next question. Here's a good one. How do I form the C6 and the D9 chords, and when do I use them? Can they replace basic chords, or are they just for adding color in certain spots? So let me start with the C6. A C6 is basically a C. I can talk. A C6 is a C chord, a basic C chord, with the 6th note added to it. So in the key of C, the 6th note would be A. C, D, E, F, G, A. So it's a C chord with an A note added to it. One easy fingering would be like this. I'll get close on this one. See that? That's just one of many possible fingerings. You actually, when you make a C chord, you just take off your 3rd finger. That actually makes a C6, because that bass note A is the 6th. But, you know, when you're strumming, it's not as obvious. It's a little more obviously. You can hear the 6th a little bit more. The 6th chord is sort of something you could use to replace the major chord in the key. So if I'm playing a song in C, I could end on the C6 instead of just the C chord. And it's a little fancier. It sounds a little jazzier. It wouldn't be appropriate for, you know, a very folksy style song. It would just sound out of place. So it depends on the style and what you're doing. I use a C6 sometimes in place of just a C chord in a song if I want it to sound just a little more interesting, a little different texture. But it depends on the style. You have to pick and choose. And use your ears and start learning what sounds right to you. And after a while, you'll just know to try a few different versions of a chord because they've worked before in the past. Let's go with the D9 now. The D9 is what we would call a type of dominant chord. What that means, it basically replaces a 7th chord and is often used in jazz and blues. A D9 is a D chord with the 9th added, but also has a 7th in it. It's not going to be a D9 without the 7th. So here's a D chord, a D7. D7 has that pull. It sounds like a 5 chord now. A dominant chord, same thing as a 5 chord in the key. And D7, can you tell it already sounds kind of bluesy? You could use a D7 there. Here's a D7. Not quite as textured, right? It sounds more bluesy with the 9th added to it. You could technically put the D9 any place you would use a D7. It's going to be sound most correct in blues or jazz, in standard tunes where you're looking for something that sounds a little more interesting than when you're going back to the one chord. And that applies to any nine, by the way. The D9 is just one example. Okay, that's all I can think to say about that right now. But if you think of any questions, please, again, add them in the chat. I'll go on to the next question for now. With a normal strum, it's easy to track where the measure ends. But a shuffle strum has this pause and it throws me off. How do I keep the track of the measure length while playing it? This is Kevin. And the shuffle strum is, see, I don't think of it as a pause. I think of it as a kind of a shifting of the weight of where the emphasis of the chord is. So here's a regular strum down, very simple, right? And a shuffle strum, I think of it like a wheel, 2/3 on the first part and 1/3 on the second part. 1, 2, 3, 1. So I don't hear that as a pause. Regular strum. Shuffle. Now, I say that to point out that there's really no extra space in there. There really isn't. And there isn't, and it ends in exactly the same place as if it was a straight strum. So here's a eighth notes. Matter of fact, let's do this. Let's put on the screen some eighth notes, and I can use the bar after to show how the strum looks in writing. Here's what it sounds like. Eighth notes. So you see 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then the next measure is 1. Now that's exactly the same place as if it was a shuffle strum. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. It's in exactly the same place. Here's how I would, now you could think this out until your brain is total mush. It helps to see it in writing. You'll notice I'm showing that the eighth notes, when you're doing a shuffle strum, it sort of sounds like a quarter note and an eighth note added together because that first part is twice as long. Da, 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 da. But it doesn't really equal 1.5 beats. It has to all fit into that one beat. Da, 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 1, 2, and so on. A good way to practice that is get rid of the chords and guitar and everything else and maybe just strum on your guitar and practice going from eighth notes down, up, down, and go to the shuffle strum, down. What you're trying to do is get used to making that shuffle strum the exact amount of space as just 2 eighth notes straight. And I know when I'm playing a song, I don't think of it as each individual part of the shuffle note. I hear it as the whole downbeat. Da, da, da. So going to the next measure, it'd be in the exact same place and it feels the same. That's something that happens with time and practice. This will help. Get rid of the chords, get rid of any other thing in your left hand and just practice the strum. Count. And 2 and 3 and 4. Some people go 1E and 2E and 3E and 4 to indicate that first part has longer sound. 1E and 2. Oh no, I think they usually go 1, 2, because 1E sounds like 16 notes. 1, 2, I haven't done that. That's probably started that way, but I don't really remember. I can feel it, and that's where you want to get, to where you can just feel the shuffle strum, how that all comes out to be just one solid beat, so it doesn't matter. It could be eighth notes or shuffle strum or anything. You're still, the next beat is still the next beat, right on that next feel. That said, let's see if I can come up with something else. Here, this really helps some students. It helps me a lot. I'm going to change the strum a little bit. Instead of just doing down, I'm going to do an actual strum I often use with blues. It's shuffle, down, up, but then on the next beat, I'm going to mute it, and then up. So it sounds like this. Down. Now for me, that really distinguishes where each of the actual beats fall on, the downbeat. It sounds more like this. Here I'm changing. So that might take a little bit to practice that mute, but it's a great strum, and it's particularly good if you're playing the shuffle. You can use your fingers. What I'm doing is just opening my hand and muting with my palm. It's very common to do it with a pick. You just basically strum down and mute the string. So see, I'm plucking and hitting the strings with my palm at the same time. And that's how I have students practice that to start. Just practice the mute. And it works much better if you just do a little bit each day over time. Don't think you're going to sit down and just get this in one setting. That really is very frustrating. And even if you do get it, it's not very likely you will remember it. It's not ingrained yet. A little at a time, space in between, and keep coming back 5-10 minutes a day. It'll just become a part of you, and you'll just feel it. Let me take a look, see if there's anything that's added to that. I don't see any questions related to what we just talked about, so let me go on. Okay, so Shulamit says, I have learned, what does it, says, I know the pentatonic scales in all 5 positions, major and minor. And then I've heard the next step is to target chord tones. What does that mean? And I understand landing on roots, and I've heard hitting the third is better sounding, more professional. I'm playing a 12-bar blues over 12-bar blues. What do you suggest? So targeting chord tones just means that when you change chords, you're targeting one of the tones that make up that chord at the change. So let's say I'm going from A to E. When I change to the E chord, I want to target one of the notes that makes up the E chord. The E chord is made of E, G, sharp, and B. We'll stick there, just triads. So if I'm playing a melody, I would want to, when the song goes to the E chord, I want to end up on the G sharp, let's say the third of the chord. By the way, the best way to get good at that is to just pick a key, hopefully one you're fairly comfortable with, play with a backing track, find where in your pentatonic scale, I'm going to take the key of A because it's easier to demonstrate. Here's a pentatonic scale, a minor pentatonic scale in A. Find the third of the chord of the E, G sharp. G sharp, it's here. Notice there's no G sharp in the A minor, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. But let's just say you pick that note. So when you go to change to the E chord, practice whatever you play ending up at the G sharp. And it's not going to be easy at first. You're going to be somewhere else and go, how do I get over there? And you just practice it. Practice coming down just 3 notes at a time till you get to the G sharp. What I did when I remember I was working on this, I would not play over the chord, and I would wait for in my progression where the E was coming, and practice a little phrase that I sort of decided what it's going to be like, that it'd land right on the G sharp, and then I start expanding it. So I'm playing A, B, 4, da da da. Let's say I'm going to this chord, the E. So So I practiced this phrase ahead of time. And I'm just squeezing it in right at the time so it'll land right on G sharp. Not really improvising, but that's how you learn. And you train your ear to hear what it takes to get there on time. That said, I think a better bang for buck, Shulamit, in this case, is to practice a very common thing in blues is to use a chromatic note going to the third. In the case of, let's say, A, I would use the A major pentatonic scale when I'm playing over the A. And then when I'm going to the 4 chord, the D, I switch to the A minor. Back to A major. That creates a very nice sound almost without trying. A major pentatonic scale when you're playing over the 1 chord in the key. So A is the key, A major pentatonic scale. If I was, of course, playing in the key of D, I'd play the B major pentatonic scale and so on. And then when you get to the 4 chord, go to the minor pentatonic scale. Now, when you go to the 3rd, which is a useful one, try using a chromatic note before the 3rd to get there. So watch this. I want to go to the 3rd of D, D, E, F sharp. I want to get to that note. But I'm going to go there first. Half note before it. Going to the D. Major, minor, by the way, when I say use the half step before the 3rd, always go up. It doesn't really work going down from there. Try that, and it'll take some experimenting. It's like anything else. You get good at it by doing it. Play a 12-bar blues on a recording and try going from the major and minor pentatonic, and then try targeting the 3rd, a half step below it and going up to it. And get used to that sound in your ear. And after a while, your fingers will kind of just go there without thinking about it. Last question pre-submitted, and then I'll start dealing with the questions in the chat. I'm struggling with the F chord. When I put down my index finger on the E and B strings, the high strings, and try to get the middle finger on the G string, the middle finger mutes the B string, that's this open 2nd string, or it's not open when you put your finger down. Are there any exercises that would help with this? Jim, so yes, definitely. And it's common. People often underestimate going from regular folk style chords to a bar chord, how big of a jump that is. The first thing I would say is I need to know why when you hit the G string, why it's muting the B string. My guess would be the most common reason is that there's not enough arc in your fingers. So here's the exercise I'm going to recommend. Make your E chord without your index finger, right? Move it up a half step. That's what you would do for the F chord, right? Only you'd make a bar, but don't make a bar. Just practice this as an exercise. Listen to all the strings and see if the B string sounds. If it doesn't, now we've eliminated any problem with the bar. We need to fix this angle of the 3rd finger. If it's down like this and the B string's muting, you want to shift your hand a little bit up, just a little bit. You don't want your elbow sticking out, right? So just subtle movements. Looking for more of an angle here, thumb behind the neck. If it's up here, that makes it even harder. Possible, but harder. Relax. should be hanging down mostly. You're not doing this, shoulder down. I have to even tell myself that occasionally. Shoulder starts going up. Relax. Try it again. Hand off, shake it off, try it again. Go up a half step. It's an exercise, right? You want to do it a little bit each day and work at it till you can play this for a couple minutes and the B string sounds. Now, the next exercise is you got to deal with that and play the bar. I would call this my second set of exercises. They could overlap. You don't have to do one and then just move to another. But I would start with this one and see if that's a problem without the bar. The next one's a partial bar. Now you're going to make a bar over, I usually cover the first 3 strings, but it doesn't matter. You could cover just the first 2 strings. You got to get your knuckle up here to make a partial bar. It's a useful technique, so it's not just wasted exercise. You need this technique as you progress. And then move your third finger over. Wait, is that my third finger? Index, second finger, over to the G string and see how that sounds. And same thing, go up by half steps. You might have to stop, shake it out, try again. And do that a little bit each day. Again, it's a process. Now, this is a very useful chord, by the way. I use this, I call these baby chords. Well, that's a G baby chord. Triad, 3 notes. So it's a useful technique, but it also gives you a chance to really isolate practicing the bar function, a little simpler than the full bar, and getting this finger without hitting that B string. That's what you're after. They both sound. If it's angled like this, now I need to move my hand, shift a little bit, relax, get a little more angle there. There we go. Got it. Now we'll go to the next one. No, let's shift, relax. Maybe pull the guitar in a little, that helps. Yeah, okay, got it. And so on. 5 minutes max each day. I might even say just 2 or 3 minutes to start out. Just think about you're going to do this for a few weeks on end. So just you're part of your warm-up practice each day. Third exercise. Now you got to do this whole thing with a bar. So I would practice. This is sort of a 2-part exercise. This is an exercise I have students often practice before they play bar chords. Just getting used to playing a bar and getting all the notes to sound and going up. Half steps. 1 note at a time and pumping. See, the left hand's pumping. I'm not just holding it. It's going to make me really sore. Pump and then release. Pump, release. If it doesn't sound, try it a few more times until you figure out what it takes. You might need to roll your finger back slightly, just a little bit this way towards the nut. And that works better for some people than others. But it tends to straighten out the finger a little bit. It's not on the side, just slight roll back so you can barely see it. And again, relax the elbow. You might need to shift around a little bit. Maybe, there's an angle. You don't want to be too far up or too far back, just so this finger is flat. Too far up, you're going to get a space right there. Too far back, and it starts collapsing. And that's going to cause problems with other parts of the chord. They're going to dead out. So that's the first part of the exercise. I would start there because this is a useful exercise in and of itself. But then add that third finger, or second finger, on the G string. Third string, that's what might be what I'm thinking of. And do the same thing. Basically, it's that partial bar exercise, only not with a full bar. Finally, of course, put it all together. You got your E up to F. I'm pretty confident by the time you get to here, the problem will be solved, but also your fingers will be stronger and it'll be easier to play any bar chord in general. I'd love to hear how that works for you. You can always come back to YouTube and leave a comment, or you can send me an email. Okay, that's all the pre-submit questions for the day. Let's see what we got in the chat. Anybody? Yeah, a bunch of questions. Oh my God, maybe I need new glasses. It's getting a little blurry. Maybe my eyes are getting old. Oh, that's a thought. Hi. Can you give me 3 flamenco chords? Ooh, only 3? Let's see. So 3 flamenco chords. Let's do one that you can play all together. It'll sound good. How about that? I'm going to start with, let's do it in the key of A minor, right? So the progression I'm thinking of would be A minor, G, F, and E. A minor, G, F, right? It already sounds flamenco. It's called the Andalusian cadence from Spain, Andalusian cadence. But it's been used in a lot of pop tunes. Or the Stairway to Heaven. So let's change those chords. Let's make them a flamenco chords. Instead of a regular A minor, I don't want it to mean A minor. It's a very good chord. But let's make it an A minor 9. So I'm going to take the third finger off. That makes it A minor 7. And put the pinky down here on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. Doesn't that sound exotic, huh? Okay, we've got A minor 9. Now in place of G, let's go for G, I think 6-9. I think that's what it would be called. So I'm making the regular G here, right? I have the open E. I let go of the open E, the high E. And in place of this second finger, I'm using my first because I need a second finger over here on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. Still got the low E bass note. Now for the F, instead of a bar F, I'm going to play what looks like a bar F, but what I'm doing is I'm just playing the 6th string 1st fret. I'm not actually hitting the high E. I'm not making a bar, in other words. Oh. Let's get close. How about that? Close? Yeah. Here we go. F. So here's a bar. Sounds normal. I think this is called F major 7 sharp 11. Is that a mouthful or what? So we've got the A minor 9. A repeat just now I got it close up. A G 6-9. The F, major 7 sharp 11, and let's throw in one more chord. Instead of E, let's go E9, E sharp 9, I think. All I'm doing is making E and moving that 3rd finger up 1 fret. That's on the G string. No, that's not the G string. That's the D string, 3rd fret. There. So it sounds like this. Here we go. Sound flamenco? Cool. Let's go back to the big picture. Next question. And by the way, if I miss your question, I apologize in advance. Please just add it again. Honestly, I can't see that good. But if you could use the word question, or even a big Q in the beginning, it'll help me sort it out from the comments. That's the problem. I have to read through which is a comment and which is a question. Can you do the country bend on classical guitar? I've never tried it. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Somebody probably could do that, but doesn't seem like it would be the right thing. I'm a beginner who knows all my country chords and a few strumming patterns, but strumming needs a lot of work. Welcome to learning guitar. Yes. I took a break from guitar and wondered where I should pick up, start over. That's a tough one. I don't know you well enough to know exactly what to tell you to work on. Off the top of my head, I would say if you knew strumming was tough, I'll tell you one mistake a lot of guitar players make is they try to learn a lot of chords. I would stick to just 3 chords that can play one song and then work on your strumming. Strumming's important, and it is hard for a lot of people. And just start with the very simple and add on. Don't try and do a fancy strum. Just try playing with a metronome and stay in beat. So let's say you know your D, A, and G. Those are 3 chords that you can use in the key, or A7 in the key of D. Start practicing those 3 chords with a strum with a metronome and playing in time. Matter of fact, I'd probably do the strum separate first. The other problem most beginners have is changing between chords. So practice one strum and then change to the next chord, getting in time with a metronome. You can just tap your foot too. That works equally as well, and maybe go between the two. Start slower than you think you need to go and really get in time, and then speed up little by little. I know it's enticing, and I still feel it, to want to learn more chords, because it's kind of like notches on a belt. You can see it. You can say, I know 10 chords. It's hard to say I can strum good. That's not the same as I know 10 chords. It's very quantifiable. But it doesn't really get you for anywhere, knowing a lot of chords that you can't change between smoothly and you can't strum smoothly. It's better to learn a few chords and add on one at a time and integrate it into the strumming and a chord pattern. And to try to learn your chords in an order where you can use them in keys. The most common is the key of D to start, because the chords are fairly easy. And G is not an easy chord for a lot of people because it's stretch, but you could start with a single finger G too. If you already play G, not a problem. That's a very useful combination of 3 chords. Another useful one might be the key of A, D, and E7, fairly easy, because now you got 3 chords in the key of A. And of course, they overlap, because you already know D and you already know A7. Now you just fill in that note and add the E chord. You can see E7 is very close to E, and so on. So they kind of build one on the other, and just add on step by step. After that, I would really recommend you get either an instructor or some kind of organized system online or something to add on step by step to what you're learning. In the beginning stages especially, it really helps to have a step by step to learn the basics, kind of like a math course. You learn the basics of calculus. You don't learn the basics of calculus. You start with addition, multiplication, subtraction, all that, and you practice those, and then you start getting to more stuff like algebra and stuff like that. By that time, you get more creative, and you can learn a lot on your own, watch other people. But in the beginning, it really goes a lot faster if you have a kind of a systematic approach to building one thing on top of another. Hope that helps. And again, I can totally feel for wanting to learn a lot of like chords, or adding on, say, I know a number of different things, but it really, I've seen so many people quit who can play 25 chords, but they can't really do anything with them, or nothing sounds good. They can play a song and it just sounds terrible. It doesn't sound anything like the song, but they know 25 chords, and they get tired of that. It gets boring. You can't really do anything with it. Next question. Oh, that was my question on the shuffle drum. Basically, the distance between the first and the last drum isn't changing. No, it's not. It's not. And that was my main point. There really is no gap or space. You got to get used to that feel of the shuffle. It's just a shifting of the emphasis. There's more on that first part of the beat than the second half. But there is no difference in space when you're going from one measure to another on the strum itself. Or even, even the beat, even between one beat and the next, there's no difference in space. What exercises do you recommend for fixing flying fingers when playing solos? So I assume what Shulamit is asking is, when you're playing a melody, the fingers are way up in the air and coming down, which, especially if you start playing faster, it's a problem because it takes, even though it doesn't look like it would take a long time to get back down there, when you're playing faster, it matters. And also it makes for inaccuracy. The farther you have to go, the harder it is to land exactly where you need to. Here's the best exercise I could recommend for this, and I still do it occasionally. I'll do it for periods of time and then stop doing it. It's called the spider. So you start out the simple version of the spider, and I know, Shulamit, you know this one, so I'm going to show the simple version for everybody else, but I know you're going to need the more advanced version. Now, I play 4 notes from the fifth fret up to here, and then I go over to the next string, and the point is to watch and just make the least amount of distance or effort to get from one string to the other. So what I'm not doing is this. See, the least amount of distance going from here to here is just moving over. And you practice that, and your fingers get used to it. Because when you're playing lead, what you got to do is train your fingers to do it automatically, to stay close to the strings. You can't think it, because by the time you do, you've just missed 3 notes. It doesn't work. You need to get it to where it's automatic. So this exercise, you do just a little at a time. And that's what it looks like when you get up to a reasonable speed. Now, you do that at that speed for a number of days, and you got to get up to that speed, but your fingers will learn not to go too far from the note. Here's the second version of that. Leave all the fingers down, move this finger over, then the next finger, then the next finger, next finger. It takes a little bit of coordination to leave those fingers down. So I'm not sure. When I did that first exercise, I kind of showed that one, but this is how people usually do the first one. Then they take all the fingers off and start over. That's the first exercise. I was demonstrating the second exercise because that's the one I'm used to doing. The more second level of the exercise is to leave all the fingers down as you move over. Again, a little bit each day, 2 minutes. Do that as your warm-up exercise for 2 weeks in a row, and then the next 2 weeks you do a different warm-up, work on something else. I hope that helps you, Shulamit. Any tips on improving upstrum? Upstrums are more challenging than downstrums. Upstrum. So let's see. Let's talk about the mechanics first. As I'm going down, I'm angling my hand slightly up so the pick brushes, and on the way up, I'm angling the other way a little bit. For the strumming like that, it's helpful to hold your pick like this. Point your finger, put the pick so it's pointing out of your finger, and then the thumb goes slightly over it, and I'm pointing my index finger in and brushing this way. Here, I'm going to make big again. Let me see if I can make big. Yeah. So it's like this. See, I'm pointing my finger into the strings. So it's kind of like brushing. I'm brushing paint lightly across the strings. Now that makes it less resistance. You're not likely to get caught in the strings when your hands see them going up and down. Now I'm going slow. You don't want to go that slow. You want it to be a crisp attack. By the way, try not to go too far. Again, the distance will make it harder to get back on time. Try to just cover, basically, and don't stress over it, but just in the area of that sound hole. An inch or two above and below. Now, you want to practice an exercise that uses the upstrum. So I would start with just going slow and practicing a strum and then changing chords. And go as slow as chords you need to get a smooth strum. It's because you got to consciously tell your hand to go down, go the other way. That'll become a habit, but you want to go slower than you would be playing so that you can tell your brain to tell your hand what to do until it becomes a habit. And then you speed up little by little and it'll start going by itself. By the way, when you're practicing this way, it'll seem hard at first. You're making very little progress, but at some point it'll make a jump. That's usually the way it works. So don't get frustrated if it seems like you're not getting anywhere. It takes time and usually longer than people think it's going to take. So that's the simplest exercise. The other exercise I think would really be helpful here is to just practice the upstrum. Make a chord. And see how smooth you can get that upstrum. And then do the exercise down up. See if you can integrate that up. Now I'm muting the strings that actually can create a strum. This is the Obla-Di Obla-Da by the Beatles. It's just all upstrums, and then I'm muting a string. So you can practice muting the strings with an upstrum at the same time. I would start without worrying about the mute and just practice that. The mute kind of keeps your place. It's actually easier than the down mute where you have to mute and strum at the same time. See, you're just choking off the strings and my hand naturally falls down. And try not to hit your guitar. I know from experience over time, it'll start making dents and holes in your guitar. So yeah, don't copy that. No, especially on my nylon string guitar. I don't want to be hitting the face of the guitar. Good questions. Let's see if we got anything else. You're very welcome. I don't see any more questions. I guess it's maybe time to close up for today. Hey, I think it's lunchtime for me. Thank you all for joining me. It's really been a pleasure being here, and I'm glad that I have some interesting questions to answer, and I would love to hear more from you. Please feel free to send me your questions for the next one. You can always come live and add your questions, but you can send them ahead of time too. Even if you can't make the live show, I'm recording this and I'll put timestamps so you can go back and see the answer to just your question, but you can also look through and see if there's other interesting questions that I've answered. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you again next month, the second Thursday of the month. Bye for now.